On 12 News Midday in Washington, she represents parts of Richmond, Chesterfield County, all the way down to the North Carolina line since 2023. 4th District Representative Jennifer McClellan, a Democrat, speaking out about cuts to the Department of Education and a whole lot more this midday. Just back from Congress, we have the Congresswoman with us here on set today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's talk about cuts. We've got Department of Education announcing a reduction in force impacting maybe 50% of the workforce there. I know that's something that you want to speak about too. What are your thoughts on it right now?
You know, as a mom to kids in Richmond Public Schools, as the granddaughter of educators, and as a former state legislator, I'm very concerned about the cuts. The Department of Education was created to fill gaps that the state and local governments can't meet, to give our students the resources they need, especially those with disabilities, and to enforce their civil rights. And what I have seen is the bulk of the cuts come from the Division of Civil Rights and the division that helps ensure that kids can afford to go to college, dealing with student loans. And, you know, our educators are worried. The state is worried. They're trying to implement their new accountability standards. They need assistance from the Department of Education. Some school divisions have had to reschedule tests because of the upheaval. So overall, I'm very concerned.
When Republicans have the line of this is to cut waste and fraud and all that kind of stuff, what do you think of that? What do you say back to people who say, well, we're just getting rid of the fraud and the waste right now?
Well, first of all, I'm all for getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, but you need a scalpel and not a chainsaw. And Elon Musk has literally brought a chainsaw and just indiscriminately canceled contracts, has indiscriminately fired people who have been in their current job for less than a year, even if they're well performing, even if they got a promotion. And so that's not what's happening. It's an all-out assault with no rhyme or reason on the federal government. And the Department of Education, you know, they campaigned on eliminating it. They want to return everything back to the states, but the department was created because the states and the localities weren't meeting all of the needs of the students. And the fact that state and local officials are very worried about what this means tells me everything I need to know.
Talking about other cuts, we're talking about cuts to Medicaid at the federal level. I know you guys are having a news conference tomorrow about it. I mean, what are your concerns there and the impacts on Virginians?
It's going to have a huge impact. You know, the millions of Virginians receive Medicaid. It's, you know, pregnant women, sick children, long-term care. It kept our rural hospitals open. You know, I was in the state legislature when we expanded Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. It kept rural hospitals open. And it's going to blow a hole in the state budget. And so we're going to talk about all of that tomorrow and hear from some patients and providers who will be directly affected.
Some national or some headlines from overnight right now. The White House touting deportations under the Alien Enemies Act after a judge blocks the effort there. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, this is an act that has not been invoked since World War II, when we were actually at war, and it was used indiscriminately to round up and house you know, the Japanese in internment camps. That is not a part of history we want to repeat. And again, the president is, rather than being targeted about going after criminals who have broken the law, he's just rounding up anybody who's Venezuelan. And some of these people fled dangerous situations in that country, either from the regime there or from gangs there. And so you're putting people in danger who have not been convicted of any crimes just because they're Venezuelan. And again, that is a part of American history we do not want to repeat.
The president touting some discussions with President Putin tomorrow about the war in Ukraine, kind of maybe divvying up assets from a congressional perspective. I mean, what are your thoughts on the war and how this all needs to come to an end?
You know, I was on the Armed Services Committee during my first 2 years in Congress, and you know, Putin, like Hitler, is trying to expand his territory illegally. And we have been very clear that we cannot concede, you cannot appease that. If he gets away with it, he will not stop in Ukraine, and eventually American soldiers will be in danger. And so my concern from day one has been that Donald Trump will roll over and give Putin whatever he wants, will legitimize an illegal invasion. And in the process, he is harming our relationship with our allies across the world and putting America in the same camp as, you know, the United States voted with Iran and Russia in the UN recently. which is not something I thought I would see anytime soon.
Let's hold up the mirror maybe to the party, your party itself. There's a new NBC News poll that is out that finds the Democratic Party has reached an all-time low in popularity as it searches for a path forward. You see it there on the screen there. -28 in that polling. I mean, as a Democrat, as a person in Congress who's trying to rally a message and bring people together on your side of the aisle, what's the problem? What message isn't getting out there? What do you say to other Democrats?
You know, I think a big part of our problem is where we're communicating and how we're communicating, not necessarily what we're communicating. What I saw during the election is we were playing catch up. Conservatives and Republicans have had years to build a conservative comms ecosystem, reaching people on blogs, on Reddit. It used to be you got all of your information from television, from shows like this, from newspapers, and we're not in that world anymore. And the Democrats need to catch up, and we need to meet voters where they are, talking about the issues that they care about. I am not chair of the party. I am not leadership in the party. I represent the 4th District. So I'm focusing on communicating to my constituents and to Virginians about what we're doing in Congress to help them and what we are doing to make their lives better, to lower costs, and to fight back against the worst instincts of the Trump administration that are raising costs, that are hurting the American people and hurting Virginians.
4th District Representative, Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan, thank you so much for your time today here on the show. Appreciate it tremendously.
Thank you.
Time now for weather.